Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, ma'am. Welcome to Bishop College.
Thank you.
And this is Premjit, ma'am.
Yes, hi. How are you?
Fine, fine. Hello. And Miss, ma'am.
Yeah,
Hello.
hello. Hello. Uh, I'm
Hi.
Anne Angelian, the head of the department. It's good to see you.
Hello, and
And welcome to Bishop College and the Department of
thank
English.
you.
Uh,
Thank you.
yeah, it's a joy to see you. Our principal
Thank you.
is here, Dr. Jacob Chandy, is
Okay.
with us, is presiding over the function.
Okay.
Uh, so I hope you got our schedule. Premjit might have handed it over. We'll just start with
Yeah.
a brief welcome, and our principal would say his remarks, and then
Okay.
Premjit would start with the first question, and then you can go on from there.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah.
Good.
So, and as time permits, we'll have interactions.
Okay.
Our friends have sorted out a few questions, and so it's there. So
Okay. Okay.
they'll ask you. That's how we're
No,
planning for.
no problem.
Anything else, ma'am, that you'd like to
No,
know?
nothing. It's
Yeah,
fine.
okay.
We can start.
Okay. Yeah, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, it's time. I think we can start.
Yeah, we can start. I can't see the other people though. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we start? Marin?
Yes, miss, we can start.
Okay. Sir, can we? I'm starting. Jacob Chandi, sir,
Yeah,
may I start the session?
yes, you can.
Yeah. Okay. So, welcome to yet another Golden Jubilee lecture series by the Department of English and IQAC of Bishop College, Mavelikara. After Simon During and Laura Mulvey, Chandrima Chakrabarti, we have the most honorable Miss Arundhati Roy with us. It's a pleasure. And let me, without further ado, start with what is interested to me to welcome the gathering. So, I welcome our principal, Dr. Jacob Chandy, the chief guest of the day, Ms. Arundhati Roy, friends and fraternity of the college, academicians and students from across the world, from across the country, and here in Kerala, all those who are watching this session live on YouTube and through Zoom, a warm welcome. We are overwhelmed by the huge response received for this session. We have done our best to accommodate everyone. Forgive our shortcomings, and I hope we can have a very fruitful session. Thank you for everyone who cooperated with us and posed relevant questions, which will be with which we will be able to carry on this question and answer session. I welcome you all wholeheartedly to this session. As the head of the Department of English, I would like to appreciate and place on record the efforts of the IQAC technical team, uh, Dr. Lynette Joseph and Mrs. Marin George, my colleagues, Dr. Divya S. and Dr. Vidhu Vijayan, who will be managing the questions, Mr. Premjit MR, who made today happen with his persistence and determination, my department and my students and friends from my college, from neighboring colleges, my students, everyone, a warm welcome. Our chief guest for the day, as we all know, she needs no introduction. But a few words, ma'am. In the current scenario, where the threats of democracy in the darkness is ever present, there are not many writers like Ms. Roy who chose to pen down her thoughts in such an articulate way without resorting to spreading hate, which seems to be the go to response these days. It is an honor to have such an eminent person with us. Going through her latest book, Azadi, published earlier this year, we read about the person, the writer, her concerns, her convictions about Kashmir, about India, and the pandemic being a portal, and also about why she is compelled to write, and all along challenging her readers to reflect on the meaning of Azadi. Her essays stay with us. Permit me to read a few lines. In the essay, I have the book here, which was a pleasure to read and finished reading it. So, just a few lines to just take you why you write. It was very interesting to read. On page 87 of the Language of Literature, you says, almost every essay got me into enough trouble to make me promise myself that I wouldn't write another. But inevitably, situations arose in which the effort of keeping quiet set up such a noise in my head, such an ache in my blood that I succumbed and wrote. The result, as we know, is my seditious art. And then I'm just randomly picking it up, the graveyard talks back. She's talking about speaking for myself, as the pressure mounts and the windows are shut one by one, every cell of my writing brain seems to want to force them open again. Does that shrink or expand writers? Sharpen or blunt them? After a few lines, I believe our liberation lies in the negotiation. Hope lies in texts that can accommodate and keep alive our intricacy, our complexity, and our density against the onslaught of the terrifying, sweeping simplifications of fascism. We keep our complicated world, with all its seams exposed, alive in our writing. And then she talks about there is fire in the ducts, the system is failing. All those essays, the titles are themselves grappling. And in this, she writes, the system is failing. What we need, I think this is very relevant for the community who's listening today. And let's think about this. The system is failing. What we need are people who are prepared to be unpopular, who are prepared to put themselves in danger, who are prepared to tell the truth. Brave journalists can do that, and they have. Brave lawyers can do that, and they have. And artists, beautiful, brilliant, brave writers, poets, musicians, painters, and filmmakers can do that. That beauty is on our side, all of it. We have work to do and a world to win. And I stop with that last essay where the pandemic is a portal. The introduction also talks about that, but then COVID 19 has made the mighty kneel and brought the world to a halt like nothing else could. Our minds are still racing back and forth, longing for a return to normality, start trying to stitch our future to our past and refusing to acknowledge the rupture. But the rupture exists, and in the midst of this terrible despair, it offers us a chance to rethink the doomsday machine we have built for ourselves. Nothing could be worse than a return to normality. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. And as it is said on the cover, what lies ahead, reimagining the world, only that. Ma'am, this is itself is something that talks about who you are, and we are all eagerly waiting for you. So I would not take much of your time, and I would want to welcome you from very sincerely for accepting our invitation, especially Premjit, who was corresponding with you. And thank you for being here. And I would like to welcome all of you once again. And I would like to welcome our principal, Dr. Jacob Chandy, who's a friend of the department. And I welcome you, sir, for your presidential remarks. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Can you hear me? And can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. A little more loudly, if possible, the volume. Yes, sir.
Chief guest of the day, Ms. Arundhati Roy, dear Anne Angeline Abraham, head of the Department of English, dear colleagues and participants from across the globe. I'm really proud of this moment in which Bishopmore College is hosting and sharing an online platform in which the world-renowned writer, Ms. Arundhati Roy, is participating. Welcome, madam. We as a college salute you for your sharp observations and wonderful visions regarding the future. Welcome to the college.
Thank you.
The pandemic has made us think and made us reconsider our priorities and policies. The field of education has had a forceful transformation to accommodate the demands of the situation of COVID-19. Science and philosophy are equally alarmed and confused about finding explanations and solutions. In such a situation, we need thinkers like Ms. Arundhati Roy, who can impartially and critically meditate and moderate the process of thought and action that can be helpful for mankind. And through Azadi, she is prompting us to rethink the question of borders and chains. When pandemic is restricting us outwardly, I too am bound to think, doesn't it have a liberative note which encourages us to forget differences and move on together in spirit, even when it is without physical contact? As the principal of this college, I welcome Ms. Arundhati Roy to this program organized by the Department of English. And let me comment and congratulate the English department for its constant and concrete efforts in organizing the Golden Jubilee lecture. I hope that the presence of uh, Ms. Arundhati Roy, we are hoping that we will be able to meet together in Bishopmore College sometime or other in the future. Thank you. Thank you all. With these words, I conclude. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Good afternoon to all. Welcome to the Golden Jubilee Lecture Series organized by the Department of English, Bishopmore College, Mavelikara. We are indeed fortunate to have with us Ms. Arundhati Roy, who is here to answer all your questions regarding her latest book, Azadi, in particular, and anything ranging from literature to contemporary politics. Before initiating the Q&A, let me present with you an overview of the book coming from a person who is no stranger to controversy. I will briefly examine why we need to read, write, and most importantly, to speak about her book Azadi as citizens of this country. Azadi is a collection of essays, some of which were delivered as lectures and a few others as articles between 2018 and 2020. It is a journey the reader has to undertake. As one moves across 9 chapters of this book, we would get frightening perspectives on freedom, fascism, and fiction. The book provokes the readers to address the hegemonical practices that has destroyed our nation in the recent past, especially after the ruling party's deliberate attempts to legitimize the long-lost slogan of Hindi, Hindu and Hindustan, which is making a steady comeback in contemporary India. The book is a clarion call to those who still cherishes the ideals of democracy and freedom amidst growing authoritarianism. The book vehemently attacks and lays out the relentless and consistent attempts of fundamentalist groups to inculcate a cultural nationalism based on the ideology of Hindutva. They envisage a society based on the oppressive hierarchy of caste system. They are working tirelessly to bring about a polity based on Akhand Bharat with the aim of wiping out all forms of diversity and pluralism. It has already colonized and consolidated many souls. As the writer says, it is like a millipede moves on with a million legs. Once they achieved its stated objectives, Arundhati Roy's writings will be hidden in the secret libraries of individuals in the attics, in abandoned underground chambers, and in the deep hinterland of India, where posterity will discover her and realize with awe and astonishment that there was an India much unlike what they experienced. To me, Azadi is an invitation to reimagine the world and to work for a possible another world. Let me start the Q&A with a question. And my first question to you, ma'am, is while reading your book, what I felt was to bomb every little bigots, fascists, lynchers, and hate mongers, and to happily walk into the gallows slapped with UAPA. That much provocative and inviting your language is. Is your language premeditated or spontaneous? Or have you ever felt that your diction, that is, choiced words and measured phrases, with its beauty and brilliance, inappropriately undermines your content? That's my question to you. Thank you.
That's a that's a uh, very interesting question. Um, I think that hopefully the idea of trying to trying to think ourselves out of this, one of the most I think pressing questions of our time is not just in this country but across the world, is why are people voting or worshipping people who oppress them? The people who are crushed are worshipping their crushers. So, I mean, to answer your question about language, it's a compliment and an insult at once, but a beautiful insult, because I don't think that I often ask myself, do I have a thought that I cannot articulate? Because I spent so much time thinking about language, thinking about the music of language, thinking about how to, I think language is such a weapon in the world. I've written about it in the past because there are people, writers, who spend their entire life trying to close the gap between language and thought. And then there are people who invent a language in order to mask their thought. You have sort of NGO language or diplomatic language or all kinds of other languages. I'm not talking about, Hindi, Malayalam, English, but the structuring of language in order to mask thought, and the structuring of language in order to articulate thought are both very, very different things. But I think that eventually, I often wonder, how is it that, for example, yesterday I was doing a press conference with the media in South Korea, who were asking me such intricate questions about caste, about Indian liberals and their intellectual contribution, or before that with Slovenia. And I thought, you know, it isn't the issues that brings these diverse people to this writing, it's the language, and then they are drawn in to think about what is being said and to understand that while the work and the writing, including the fiction, is so very local and specific to my context, the language makes them able to take it and relate it to their context. And that's what makes it universal in the end. So to me, language is everything as a writer. It is the most exquisite thing, and the best times in my mind are spent honing language, which it doesn't mean that I pick and choose words. It's not like that. It's very, very instinctive, but that instinct comes out of a kind of continuous training, like musicians train or athletes train or dancers train. It's a continuous obsession. Can you hear me, people?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay.
Premjit sir?
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Then Divya and Vidhu. Over to Divya and Vidhu.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Now we move on to the questions from our participants. First, we have Nisha Kumari. Nisha?
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
I'm Nisha Kumari, and I'm a master's student from English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. It's a
Okay.
pleasure to actually see you.
Where are
and
you,
ask
though?
you
I can't
question.
see you. Can I see you? No.
Okay, I'll start my video. Am I visible?
Yes. There you are. Yes.
Yes, I am currently in Patna, and
Okay.
okay, I've read your first novel, the God of Small Things, and I really enjoyed it. I read it in my bachelor's course, and it was really amazing. But my question here is, I've seen many people who have loved your first novel, as I said, the God of Small Things, and but they now say that Arundhati Roy is very problematic in her later books, and she has become very politically extremist, and thus they do not like reading you much now. Do you think they are right, and what do you have to say about it?
Well, I think, the point is that our country has changed over the last 20 years, So if I was a writer who did not deal with those changes, who did not have an opinion about those changes, and wrote trying to be popular and trying to make people love me and trying to continue to build on the success without taking risks, I would not respect myself, you know. So for me as a writer, it's important to take those risks. And if people have trouble with my politics, that means presumably they have no trouble with what this current regime is doing, and therefore obviously there would be a hostility towards me, which is fine because I'm not about popularity. I'm a writer who wants to write what I think and to deal with themes that I grapple with. I don't have to write some best-selling book every time I write. In truth, I think The Ministry of Utmost Happiness is a much more ambitious and difficult book than The God of Small Things. And I did not want to write the son of God of small things or the grandson of the God of small things. I wanted to take risks. I wanted to write a risky novel, which is what the Ministry of Utmost Happiness is. And it's a novel that delighted me while I was living in it and constructing it and writing it. And that's what matters to me.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Nisha. Thank you for that question. Now, Ms. Rosina will be joining with her question. Rosina, you here?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Yes, you can please ask your question.
Good afternoon, Arundhati, ma'am. It's
Good
such an
afternoon.
honor to be able to converse with you. I'm Rosina. I work as Assistant Professor of English at Sri C. Achuthamenon Government College, Thrissur, Kerala. And my question is, given the political stance of our country, where we take into certain sections of society like the refugee exodus, the Kashmir issue, and the Rohingyas plight, how can a writer break free from the stigma of being a closet writer and strive
Sorry,
against
can
forced?
you just? I lost
I shall
your
repeat
audio.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am, I'll repeat it. That is, given the stance of, given the political stance our country has taken to certain sections of society, like the refugee exodus, the Kashmir issue, and the Rohingyas plight, how can a writer break free from the stigma of being a closet writer and strive against forced norms of cultural amnesia at times when voices that dare to speak out are silenced forever?
Well, recently I was talking to a friend of mine who's a journalist, who's come under a lot of pressure, who's being threatened, and he said, "What's the point of doing anything when I can't be myself? When I can't write what I want to write, what's the point of anything? So I said, if you read history, you look at what the Soviet Union was doing to its poets, its writers, its intellectuals. You look at people who survived Nazi Germany. You look at people working in China, in so many other repressive regimes, we can't afford to just give up, right? I mean, there was a poet called Osip Mandelstam in Russia who was sent to the camps because a poem he wrote about Stalin wasn't considered worshipful enough. And he died in the camps. But there are so many writers, like so many Russian writers who wrote for years, whose manuscripts were arrested like as if they were human beings. We all have to continue to, sometimes there may come a time when we cannot confront a regime straight on. We have to move laterally, we have to speak in riddles, but we have to keep ourselves alive by continuing to work. So there's no straightforward answer to your question, because each of us will have to find our own way of keeping ourselves intellectually alive, politically alive. Watching our works being banned, or I was very touched by what Premjit said, about the fact that, if this situation continues in this country, surely people like me will be purged, like our works will be off the shelves and off the bookshelves, but they will survive. And people, their curiosity will remain alive, but right now is not the time to give up. We have to continue to hone and continue to find spaces in which we can keep each other alive. If you look at the repression that, say, people in Kashmir have lived through for so many years, they still survive, they still think, they still write, so we have to learn from history. We have to learn from what people have lived through. Much worse they have lived through than we are living through now. So yeah, I'd say just read some history. It'll give you strength to see what other human beings have been through.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasina. Thank you, ma'am. So now we move on to our next participant, it's Atashi Sahu. Sir, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello, Atashi Sahu.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, ma'am. Arundhati, ma'am.
Hello, where are you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay, ma'am. I am from West Bengal, and I actually completed my MPhil. And so actually, I was working with your works, so I'm a great fan of yours. That means your creativity that attracts me. So, ma'am, my question is that in the Ministry of Utmost Happiness, you have shown a ray of hope that another world is possible, that Dusri Dunya, that is possible. So, so now, what do you think? How is it possible? And also, in many of your works, you have told about that that idea that is on the way, that Dusri Dunya is on the way. So, how is it possible? Do you think that communism can bring that another world, or if so, in case in this fractured society, everyone is somehow restricted. People cannot express their own views, so that you also know very well, because whenever you are trying to say something, people call you anti-national. So how is it possible if communism can bring that uh, another better world where everyone will be getting that equality, that hope will be there to live happily? So how is it possible? Somehow we are disillusioned in this world. So please say something about it.
So the thing about the Ministry of Utmost Happiness, or a novel, that novel is that it's not just saying that another world is possible and it's on its way, but another world is possible and it's here, depending on how you see. What do you choose to see? What do you choose to value? What do you choose to love? What do you choose to fight? You know, like all those worlds actually exist inside our world now. It's a question of what what do you choose to prioritize in your life, in your thinking. How do you relate to people who are gender non-conforming? How do you relate to inequality? How do you relate to fascism? How do you relate to mob violence or lynching? How do you relate to caste? you know so it's not simple to say communism will come and sort out all the problems. I mean, anyone who's read The God of Small Things knows that it's not such an easy relationship for me with communism, because communism in this country has consistently avoided looking at the most horrific thing in our society, which is caste. So, as a novelist, what one does is to unpeel layers and show you that there are other worlds possible, other ways of seeing, other ways of looking at what is right under your nose. You know, so that's why, in fact, Anjum, in the Ministry of Utmost Happiness, when I don't know if you remember that moment in Jantar Mantar where there's a documentary film crew going around trying to make people say another world is possible as a sort of slogan. And she says, "मैं दूसरी दुनिया से आई हूँ." Like, I have come from that other world, because her world is a world which people try not to see, but it exists for her. And it exists in the Khwabga where she lives with her other mates. So I think the thing about being a novelist is that, to me, I've always said the novel is the simplest way of saying a complex thing. It doesn't come at you with a slogan, but it respects the diversity around you in its characters, there isn't, the Ministry of Utmost Happiness, for example, I think it can be a discomforting novel because it doesn't present you with the things that all of us are comfortable with. Even if The God of Small Things is disturbing, it still has that family unit. It still has uncles and aunts and grandmothers, and whereas it's a family with a broken heart at its center. But the ministry of utmost happiness starts with a shattered heart, with broken families, and then that heart becomes a mended heart in a graveyard. Now there's some disturbance. So yeah, so it's so I can't say communism will come and sort out anything, but we need we need to understand the history of humanity. We need to understand where technology has brought us. While on the one hand people are being silenced, on the other hand they're also being given individual voices. Human society is atomized. A single second of something happening can be magnified a million times on the internet and change the world. So it's a very interesting, complex, and in some ways beautiful and terrifying time that human beings are going through now.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Atashi, and thank you, ma'am. Nino Thomas is with us, and Nino, you can ask your question now. Nino Thomas? Nino, am I audible to you? Yes, you can ask your question. Nino,
hello, ma'am. Hello. Hello.
Yes, Nino, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you see me, ma'am? Hello.
No, I can't see you.
Just a second, ma'am. It's because of network issues.
Oh, okay.
Can you see me?
No, I can't, but I can hear you clearly.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. You can ask your question.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Ma'am, can you see me now?
No, sadly, I can't see
you. Okay. I'm a huge fan of yours, and I'm doing my project work on Azadi. I read the chapter, I read the essay collection for twice, and I'm really impressed about the authoritarianism and about your speaking about the facts throughout the essays. And I can't believe that it's in between 2018 and 2017, even though the things are happening in a way, like, for example, the arrest for the Stanswami, and we are in fact silencing the speakers like intellectuals and think tanks, and we are silencing by placing them in jails. So, ma'am, you're raising your voice, and what are the threats you're facing against it?
Well, I mean, it's hard to know, the threats because people are suddenly picked up and put into jail. In my case, what happens, I think, is that the fact that I'm, sort of people know me here in this country as well as outside, it half of that fame protects me and the other half makes me more vulnerable because the attacks on every single thing you say or do or wear, or that pressure is 24 hours a day. And sometimes people attack you just in order to get attention. But the fact is that I can't complain because thousands of people are going through this fear. And as I was saying to someone earlier, we have to take that into account, and we have to do our best to keep spaces open in which we can think, we can challenge the regime, we can put forward a different way of looking at the world, knowing the risks we are taking, and doing our best to survive these times.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
And Tina, you can ask the next question, Tina. Tina Thomas. Tina? Tina, if you're with us, you can please ask the next question.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you're audible. You're audible. If you can enable your video, that will be great.
I can see you also. She has enabled.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, ma'am. Ma'am, my question actually is, what type of Azadi are we speaking today in this century? I mean, does the common man actually crave for the Azadi that the politicians are talking about?
Well, not many politicians are talking about Azadi, but this book of mine, this collection of essays, is really a rumination about that, you know. So it's not that you can have a single slogan, sentence answer to that question, right? So I mean, if you were to ask me, you know, I don't crave simply individualism, you know. I crave to live in a society that is at least pretending to move towards justice, towards equality, towards you know, a minimum, towards reducing inequality, towards minimum things like healthcare and education, and the freedom to express yourself, the freedom to think. You know, those would be what I would say. But the complexities of, you know, some people thinking about their freedoms while being very happy to oppress other people in their name, all these things are things we need to think about as a country. What kind of country are we? What are our values? What is the society that we live in?
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we move on to Takbir. Takbir, sir, if you can hear me.
Hi, I'm actually a ma'am, not a sir. Can you
Sorry, I'm
hear
sorry.
me?
Yes,
Can
I
you hear
can.
me?
Yes,
And can you see me?
I can see you
Hi,
too. Hi.
hi, ma'am. I'm from
Hi.
Kashmir. I'm from Kashmir, Srinagar, and I'm pursuing my PhD from Hyderabad. As my PhD research is on Manto, and I would like to start my question with his quote when he says that if his stories are unbearable, it means that the time we are living in is unbearable. So my question is kindly related to this quote of his. Like when we see JNU romanticizing about the concept of Azadi, like the people coming out on streets and people shouting slogans of Azadi, that's on a different parameter against the long resistance and the long awaited Azadi of Kashmir. How do you and what do you think of this shift between the political Azadi of Kashmir, which is, marked with the deaths, marked with the bloodshed, marked with everything that we see and encounter in Kashmir, with the shutdown of 2G, with the shutdown of everything possible there. How do you see this shift from the concept of political Azadi versus the Gali Azadi? So I just
Have
wanted to
you
understand.
have you got a chance to look at the book? Azadi?
Yes,
My
ma'am.
book.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So that entire book is about those two different Azadis, and the fact and what Kashmir is asking for, and what the chant of Azadi on the streets of India, started with Kanhaiya Kumar and JNU, but then ended up with people on the streets against CAA and NRC, and what is the universe between these two. So that's what the whole book is about, that we cannot try and pretend that they are both the same thing. They are not. And
So you think that there might be a reduction of the concept of Azadi when we look through the layman's idea of Azadi? Where
of
will we
course,
posit the idea of and concept of Azadi in the common man's idea and mind?
so the thing is that, the book talks about where did those chants of Azadi come from. Sometimes the feminists in the 1960s say that it's our chant. It was
Yeah.
a chant of the Iranian Revolution. It became the chant of the freedom struggle in Kashmir, and then on the streets of here. And it would be sad if anyone owned that word, right?
Yeah.
The word freedom. But what I think of as the struggle of Azadi in Kashmir is extremely clear, I think, from everything that I've written and the novel, The Ministry of Utmost Happiness. And yet I don't think that we can deny the right of Indians suffering, being crushed by that same state, to vision a different kind of Azadi for themselves. They are not talking about a political Azadi, an Azadi of a free nation, as Kashmiris are talking about, but they are talking about caste oppression, they are talking about poverty and all these things, which are very important. But there are people who I do not respect, who try to make both sound like the same thing, which they are
Same
not,
thing.
and who are willing to talk about Azadi and dignity for people in India, and are willing to digest the horrors that are being committed in their name in Kashmir. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Takbir. Pragya, I hope you're ready with your question.
Yes, ma'am, I'm ready with the question.
Okay,
Good
go ahead.
afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, I'm obliged to attend the online session with you as a chief guest. Ma'am, the one question which keeps disturbing me that I would like to request you to answer it is the partition, the war, the bloodshed. Uh, is it all for the sake of Azadi? Or if yes, then what kind of Azadi we are trying to achieve?
You mean in 1947?
Ma'am, I
Which
cannot
part?
hear.
You're talking about the independence struggle of
Ma'am,
1947?
for example, right now also there are some states or some communities which are fighting for Azadi, and their purpose for Azadi is they have to do the bloodshed and they have to do the battles. So, and every time they give this irrational reason that it is for the sake of their freedom or Azadi. Uh, what kind, ma'am? Even in the 1947, the partition happened, and there was even I can say that I am also a great fan of Sadat Hasan Manto, and he has written beautifully, like Toba Tek Singh has written beautiful depiction of how it affected the partition, how it affected the humanity, the psychological stance, and all those things. So if yes, like the partition, that time also there were people who were claiming that the partition is for Azadi. So just ma'am, clearly that the battles or the bloodshed or the partition, is it for Azadi? And if yes, it is for Azadi, then what kind of Azadi are we trying to achieve?
Okay, so this is a long and complex question. Let me see if I can answer it simply. First of all, in one of these essays, I talk about the complexity of using this word partition. Okay, because partition suggests that there was just one whole and then it was partitioned. In truth, that was not the case, right? There was a region, there were hundreds of princely kingdoms. Some provinces were partitioned, other provinces were assimilated. Kashmir, for example, was an independent kingdom that was assimilated, and all the complexities of that history. You have a situation where in 1947 there was partition, but there was also the assimilation of so many states, which today are called the northeastern states, forcibly into the Union of India. You had military conflicts at the time. So in a way, colonialism ended and a different kind of colonialism began at the same time. Then you have a situation where people say, okay, so what happened in independence? British colonialism ended, but was it not replaced by a colonialism of the Indian elite? What happened? So many of the anti-caste battles, for example, on the one hand, the Constitution of India became a document where, for the first time ever in the history of this civilization, it was legally said that all Indians are equal. Until then, it was always, which caste are you? Are you up? Are you down? Are you? But that constitutional guarantee was not a social guarantee. It was not a political guarantee. These things and these struggles, these ideas of freedom are by no means settled at all, and they will not be settled for years to come because we have such huge civilizational prejudices in our societies. So all of that is something we have to take on board. We can't just be an elite which said the British left, the Indian elite stepped in, the privileged caste stepped in, and now we have the rising of Hindutva and everything is fine. And everyone else who criticizes it is an anti-national, That's not acceptable. We have to understand the complexities of the culture that we come from.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Pragya. Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Shahin Mohammed. Shahin, hope you're ready with your question.
Yes, I am. I hope you can see me, ma'am.
I can't actually.
Oh. Oh.
Yes, now I can, yes.
Can you see me now, ma'am?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Ma'am, it's a great honor to ask a question to you. Myself, Shahin Mohammed, I'm a student and hence an anti-national, unfortunately. So, ma'am, my question is, propaganda news has now dominated the entire political discourse of most of the theoretically democratic nations. And in an already existing time of highly centralized media and TRP crossfires among them, we have seen the political leaders themselves sometimes, most times actually, act as a proponents of these misinformations, and along with the blasphemous nexus between certain political parties and social medias like Facebook. And ma'am, in a highly polarized nation like ours, this infodemic has even instigated riots and mob lynchings. So, ma'am, how do you think that we can tackle the situation, especially when the entire political discourse and ideological debates attains a completely virtual shape? As a youth, I'm deeply, deeply worried about the future prospects.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very worrying situation because actually it's not just the centralized media, right? It's the decentralized media, the internet, the ownership of, I mean, the ability to have like millions of WhatsApp accounts disseminating misinformation, which is the problem. And when you see, I was recently watching, I'm sure you must have seen it too, this documentary called The Social Dilemma, where the people who actually worked and invented Facebook and the like buttons and so on, who now don't let their children go on Facebook because they say that the only possible end to this kind of ushering of people into their various pools of you keep pushing people into their echo chambers to a situation where there can never be a conversation because everyone is being pushed by advertisements and all that into spaces where they are comfortable, and the only end they say to this is civil war, because people have stopped the ability to be able to speak to each other. The situation in India regarding the mainstream media is, of course, a completely separate one, where we see that it has been completely captured, more or less completely captured by a nexus of corporates and the Hindutva ideology. So anyone who is now speaking against it is being threatened, is being arrested. Anyone who's for it is being given such wide play in not just propaganda but outright lies now. I mean, if I had a solution to it, I would be a genius. I don't know that I have a solution to it, but I think we are approaching a situation where recently you've seen even corporates who advertise heavily on these toxic media channels realizing that for their own sake, they have to stop doing that. The real issue now is, I think, the people who belong to minorities or other diverse communities who are not with this Hindutva project, of course they realize they're being oppressed. But right now we're in a situation where even the people who are a part of the Hindutva project are facing a situation where they are going to render themselves ridiculous. Education institutions are losing their brightest minds. The scientific establishment is being undermined. The courts are being undermined. And ultimately, you will become a country which is disrespected all over the world, however powerful you remain within the country, in a time when the economy is interlinked and everything is connected. You will not be able to compete. Not even those who vote for you and adore you and want Hindutva at home while their children are studying in American university, but they find themselves to be completely incompetent. Because ultimately, fascism is an attack on intelligence. It is a project of stupidity. And that stupidity is what will end it in the end.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, Shaheen. Thank you. Ms. Rajula, I hope you're ready with your question. Rajula? Rajula?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes,
good evening, ma'am.
Hello, Rajula. I can't see you, but hello, I can hear you.
Hello, I hope, can you hear me, ma'am?
I can hear you, yes, but I can't see you.
I don't know what happened. Ma'am, I'm working as an higher secondary school teacher in Kerala. I just wanted to hear your opinion on the present pathetic situation, especially in the case of our democracy or secularism. All of these are under threat. And we see that recent verdicts on cases like Babri Masjid and issues like Hathras, everything really frightens. So I just wanted to have an opinion whether or if you think that there is an alternative. Because I'm talking from Kerala, here the situation is different when we talk about the situations in all over India. Here we have some hope that these threats can be reduced at any cost. But the case is not like that in other part of India. Ma'am, what is in your mind? Is there any alternative or any sort of solutions are possible? Because people nowadays are not ready to talk freely, express freely, because Sanjeev Bhatt is there, another threat. And you have already talked about the threats a novelist face. So threats are there. So people nowadays shifts their place to a comfortable zone. So if people are not ready to react, how can we make an alternative situation in this prevailing India?
So,
is clear?
Rajula, you're just asking me to answer in a couple of minutes what one has been writing for 20 years, you know. So I can't really answer that question without you know, just some slogans or some easy statements. But as you know, there are people who are struggling, who are thinking, who are writing. It's not that everybody is scared and everybody is keeping quiet. You know, there are people who are fighting it, and you have to find those people, and you have to join those people, and you have to add your voice to those people. We can't just tell ourselves everybody's scared, everything is terrible, let's just keep quiet. Kerala, of course, the one of the reasons why it remains a space where conversation is still possible is because it's a place where people were educated. It's a place where big arguments have been had, you know, and yet that combination of the presence of a great Christian population, of the Marxists, of the Muslims, of the Hindus, of all together have created a situation where it's impossible right now anyway to close it down. But other places in India, people have deliberately been left to their own devices. There's no healthcare, there's no education. This regime is pushing superstition, unscientific understandings, disempowering people, and those disempowered people then vote for them, you know. So we have to, we have to read, we have to think, you have to, if you're a higher secondary teacher, you know, I mean, in other places, I was talking to teachers. I have a lot of friends who are teachers and professors. It's a very terrifying thing now that a friend of mine was telling me that when she teaches online, some of her students are sitting with their computers in RSS shakhas. Everybody is watching, everybody is trying to pounce on something that is said. But, you know, at the same time, we can't try and pretend that nothing is being said. People are also being outspoken. People are also being fearless. People are also saying, okay, take us to jail, but we're going to say this. You know, look at that anti-CAA NRC protest. Look at Shaheen Bagh. Look at, you know, all the students that came onto the streets before Corona. So we can also, you know, kind of psych ourselves into a position of helplessness, which we mustn't do.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I call Angeline, ma'am. Ma'am, are you ready? Angeline, ma'am.
Yes, I can hear you. This is Vidhu, ma'am, right?
Yes, ma'am. You may please ask.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I might not be able to turn on my video because I'm afraid I'm not dressed appropriately for a formal gathering, you know, with all senior academicians here. So I'll just, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, Roy. I hope you're okay with me addressing you as Miss Roy.
Yes, of course.
Yes. Okay. So the question I have, the question, or let me say, the thought that keeps coming back to me whenever I read a work by Arundhati Roy is like, I have read a couple of your works: God of Small Things, Ministry, Broken Republic, Algebra. So the question that constantly haunts me when I'm reading all of Roy is as follows. Now, lived experiences of the marginalized and talking, theorizing, indulging in polemics, academic discourse, etc., about the marginalized are two very different things. With that particular premise in mind, what are your thoughts on appropriating the narratives of the marginalized? You know, the speaking for or the say savior mentality. what are your thoughts on appropriating the narratives of the marginalized for the sake of academic kudos and passing on the mic and allyship? Like, who is, say, an Angelin or who is a Roy to give voice or give Azadi to the marginalized? Does it not become like that, men pretending to be woke, the men who say, I allow my wife to work, so I'm very progressive. Does it not become that? Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Okay. So I think that if anyone claims to speak on behalf of someone else, that is completely unacceptable. I've always said that there's no such thing as the voiceless. There's only the deliberately silenced or the deliberately unheard. So there is no such thing as the voiceless, and I would never presume to speak on behalf of, people who are marginalized. That's just not something that is acceptable. However, I mean, if you read, for example, an essay called The Doctor and the Saint, one of the things Gandhi did was to insist that he spoke on behalf of what was then called untouchable people, and he said he gave himself the right to. That is not acceptable. However, at the same time, if you're a novelist, you can't, there cannot ever be a novel. If you're going to only write lived experience, then you can only write autobiography. And then too, do you have the right to your own perceptions? So, to me, if either of my novels was pretending to be some savior response or some biblical angelic thing representing the marginalized, I would be repulsed by myself. But that is not what one does, at any point. So I completely see where you're coming from, and it has a whole history, powerful people writing the histories of those whom they have suppressed. So it's a very valid point. But if that's what you think I do, then I think I wouldn't agree with that, because I am someone who has never agreed to be known as the voice of the voiceless. I find that a very repulsive description of anybody, and anyone who thinks of themselves like that should think again.
Yes, thank you. I didn't mean it as more as a negative criticism.
Yeah, no, it's a very valid thing. I'm not.
I wanted to know your thoughts on allyship.
Yeah,
And
yeah, no, because it's right. You're right that in this country especially, the mic has been taken away, and you see even intellectuals and writers and people who claim to be liberal and left refusing to acknowledge the fact that they even live in a casteist society, for instance.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Roy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Vindu ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Kaikasi, I hope you're ready with your question.
Yes.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes.
Okay. Arundhati ma'am, I'm so excited to see you. And reading Azadi is like reliving all the nightmares that we have lived through post 2014, to be precise. And it makes us make me feel fortunate that I'm living in Kerala and not somewhere in India. And so post 2014, we have been exposed to a very dangerous kind of hyper nationalism, which actually makes all the citizens fall into two camps. You have the liberals and also the nationalists. And while the liberals, when the nationalists say that, we have to go back to a unique past, both of them have a very indefensible notion of a community. And while the nationalists say that we must go back to a unique past, our heritage and culture and so on, the liberals always takes us to a position of, say, justice, freedom and rights and so on. So where do the people who do not fit in these categories, or where do the people who are in a midway fit in, or what is your take on that?
So, I mean, I don't think it's true that there are only these two categories, the nationalists and the liberals. That is a kind of false narrative that is being put out, especially by nationalists. Liberals, sorry, what do they call people pseudo secular and libtards and all these, kind of offensive words versus the true nationalists. But this is a false narrative. There is a complexity, as I keep saying, in this country. And if you wanted to look at it in the way that I do anyway, I see that liberal intellectuals, liberal commentators have actually spent a lot of their time paving the way for the fundamentalists that have arrived now by refusing to acknowledge the horrors that have been committed, by refusing to look at the openly fascist ideology and call it by its name. So I don't think we need to fall into the categorizations that they offer us, and there are long and complex debates on what we call rights-based societies, which are obviously adopted from Western democracies and need to be questioned because, as I keep saying, we come from a far more complex, society and can't just borrow concepts. But let's not fall into this trap of if you're not this, you're that, and if you're not either of the two, you don't fit in. We all have a place here. Let's be clear, Everyone has the right to be here. Everyone has the right to think their thoughts. Everyone should have the right to express their thoughts. And everyone should have the right to live with dignity and think of themselves as equal.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kailusi. Thank you, ma'am. So,
you're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. I think Noorzaba is ready with her question. Noorzaba. Noorzaba, can you hear me? Okay, I think she is not on.
So can we just make it till 3:30, okay? Because then I have to go. So
yeah, sure, ma'am.
Yeah.
Like call the next person. We'll wind it up by 3:30.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so Abida.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Ma'am, can you see me now? Hello?
Yeah, I can see you now.
Good afternoon. This is Abita from Chennai.
Hi.
I have a question, but before that, would like to share memories of reading God of Small Things as a school-going kid. Probably I married across religion, across cultures, probably because of the courage that I learned from the book. Thank you for that.
Oh,
I have a question for you. In Kanpur, quite recently, special investigation teams have been set up to probe into love jihads. SITs are usually set up for a very serious offense. Your views, please, and how do we come to terms with this setting up special investigation teams for something which is very personal?
So this is pure and outright fascism, and ultimately when you battle it, it is the battle of love against hate, and love is vulnerable, it's open, it's beautiful. Hate is hard and steely and appears to be indestructible, but eventually will collapse. But I cannot even begin to state the extent of my disgust at this conversation about love jihad. You know, you have seen young girls openly come out and say nobody forced us to convert. We are doing what we're doing for the love of this other person, you know, for our partner. And it is only hatred and fascism that is putting this machinery in place.
I was
And
also reminded
however,
of police brutality in The God of Small Things, the portions.
yeah, however frightening it is fascists moving towards their own destruction, you know.
Thank you so much. It feels surreal talking to you. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Smita, I hope you're ready with your question.
Hello, can you see me, ma'am?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Hello, no, I can't see you, but I can hear you. Yeah,
Can you
there
see
you
me, ma'am?
are. Yes.
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
I'm Smita from, I'm working as assistant professor in Government Victoria College, Palakkad. So I'm very excited and a bit nervous too, because I'm talking to one of my very favorite authors. While preparing the question yesterday to ask you, I came across this news that in Tamil Nadu, a particular essay of yours is being withdrawn due to the pressure of the ABVP. And the news were back to back. The news was back to back. Just before that, I heard that the OTT platforms are being again surveilled by the government. So it's like every day you feel kind of depressed and suppressed. So my question is, we feel like we are lost in this dystopian world as the BJP-led fascist regime is tightening its grip at every quarter, be it upon activists, teachers, academicians, administration, courts, media, the OTT platforms, and also the pathetic reality that they could cast their evil spell on the large, gullible masses of Bihar, as the election results suggested. So, in this rather bleak scenario, what hope lies for us who strongly believe in the spirit of democracy to sustain, even if we understand that our democracy is a sham and all those things? Can we ever, after all, after all this damage done, can we ever find some life left in us to reimagine a day when we are truly, truly free? That's my question, ma'am.
Well, that's up to us, you know, whether we want to lie down and give up or whether we want to. Sometimes, I mean, we don't always have to be strong and revolutionary and happy, but we can also, you know, break down and then make ourselves up again and find some energy from each other, from conversations like this. You know, I mean, like sometimes you have to take a closer look at things. Like, for example, if you look at the Bihar elections, I was reading today that the difference in the vote share was 0.03% between the Mahagathbandhan and BJP. And think of it, you know, this young man without anything, and this, you know, other side with the prime minister, with all the media, with all the money, with all the helicopters at his disposal. So we always must look for hope, not hopelessness, you know. We have to look for those pinholes of hope. I mean, yes, I read the news about my book being taken off the syllabus in Chennai. I was first of all pleased to know that it was on the syllabus. I didn't know that, so it's good it was. And one can't expect that, you know, writers like me. Recently, someone was talking to me and saying, you know, do you teach anywhere? I said, well, you know, I don't think that a person like me, if I taught anywhere, would have been able to keep my job given the things that I write, you know. But look how widely it is read. I mean, whether it's on the course of the university or not, do you think it's going to make a difference to how widely the work is read? It's not. It's not. It's on the internet, it's everywhere, it's available to every curious mind. Probably going to be read more because it's been, you know, taken off that syllabus. So we really I mean, we really can't just give up at the first sign of trouble. You know, if you, I keep saying this again and again to myself and to friends, let's just read some history. Let's look at what human societies have been through. You know, we have to be able to get past this. We have to be able to keep creating and writing and thinking without being approved of by the establishment, without being included on syllabi, because obviously they're going to try and control those things. But the fact that they're trying to control those things means that we have power, you know, means they're worried about what we have, which is beautiful.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, we have 2 more questions. Is that okay?
Yes, yeah, perfect.
Oh, thank you. So, Karthik, you may please ask a question now. Karthik.
Hello. Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Hello. Audible, but
Hi,
not
yes.
visible.
Yes. Ma'am, my question is, how do you see the future of civil rights movement in India? I mean, especially the non-violent civil rights movement in India. I mean, will that be successful against the mighty Indian state? That is my question.
Well, there isn't any single civil rights movement in India, right? It's a diverse movement and it's a continuous argument. So as long as we continue to argue, and as long as, for example, to me, the most important thing for us to do is to be able to get over caste, because that is the most repulsive thing about Indian society. The minute we are people with vertical hierarchical minds, we are lost. We are finished. You know, we can never come out of that hole. So we have to continuously fight that in whatever way, from wherever we are, whether you're Brahmin or whether you're anything in between, whoever you are, you have to continuously be throwing yourself at that wall and breaking it down. And we have to do it. And it's a continuous process. It's something that has existed for thousands of years. And we just simply cannot stop fighting it at every level. So, you know, that existed before the fascist regime existed, and it will exist after the fascist fall. But that thinking is a form of fascism. You know, the idea that one kind of human being is superior to another intrinsically, biologically, and by divine ordain is fascism. That is the foundation of fascism. So we've got to stop that, and we've got to fight that. And nothing can make us comfortable and sit down in our chairs until we all together think of that as a repulsive practice.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Karthik. We have the last question from Geetu. Geetu, I hope you're ready with your question. Geetu?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah, okay, okay. Good afternoon, Arundhati ma'am. I think it's my privilege to ask you a question in this wonderful session. I'm from Kerala and I have recently done my master's from Kerala University. And my question is, marginalization and persecution, the tools of intolerance, enstrangle true freedom to Azadi and deny its fruits to downtrodden. Given this scenario, ma'am, can true freedom ever become a reality for the oppressed?
So, what is true freedom, you know, and how do we define it? These are things we've been talking about. I don't think that there's some, you know, final destination where the train will stop and everything will be okay. I think the point is, are we fighting for a society that is moving towards justice, or are we a society that is entrenching institutions of injustice? Are we celebrating injustice? Are we celebrating inequality? And I would say right now, we are moving in the opposite direction from where we should move. We may never become a perfect society, but surely we have to be moving in the right direction, which we are not right now.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Geetu, and thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you, ma'am. And it's 3:25 now. We are just trying to wind up the session. And as you said, you would like to close it by 3:30. The task that is actually bestowed on me is to express my gratitude to you and to everyone who's actually made this possible. And thank you so much. In fact, when Premjit actually shared this news to us that you will be coming over and speaking to us, it was an excitement which is still there, like when we're actually sharing this virtual space with you. Thank you very much for having spent your valuable time with us and for sharing your ideas, letting us know what you think. In fact, we keep reading you and we do know how you think about it. And, it was really great listening to you for such a long time. Thank you very much for the...
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to speak to you and occasionally hear the soundtrack of Kerala in the background, some Poo and Kori and all that. It was really lovely. And,
Thank you for answering the questions patiently. We've got many questions, but unfortunately the paucity of time is, kind of restricting that. And it's actually being live YouTube streaming is happening. And a lot of questions popping up there too. And, it's sad that we cannot accommodate all of that in this webinar.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for having spent
You're welcome. Okay, bye everybody.
And
Thank
you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take this opportunity to thank our principal of the college, Professor Jacob Shandy sir, for leading us and for encouraging us in whatever activities we're actually coming up with. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Anne ma'am, for being there for us, for being our strength, our support. Thank you very much. Colleagues of my department for chipping in at the right moment. Thank you all. And the response has been overwhelming. Thank you one and all those who have registered, all those who have posed their questions. And we've just tried to include as much as we could. I hope all of you can understand the limitations that we had with the time and the available resources. Thank you all. And thank you to my department mates, my friends and my colleagues. A word of gratitude to Premjit MR for bringing Arundhati Roy to Bishopmore College. Thank you, team IQAC. That goes without saying, without Marin, Lynette, and the support of IQAC, this really wouldn't have materialized because the technical glitches, could happen anytime, and they were, solid rock behind us. Thank you, both of you. Thank you, IQAC, and thank you, Bishopmore College. And thank you, everyone from the Department of English. Thank you very much. And thank you, Vidhu, very much for being there because, we just pull it off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, team. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, bye. Thank you, everybody. See you sometime. Bye.
Bye.